Good morning and welcome to the webinar, Integrating the Requirements Management into Your ALM Ecosystem. This webinar is part of a series of webinars where we go through and review different types of integrations in the lifecycle. Today's webinar will be focused on the integration between requirements and test management tools. My name is Fernando Valera. I'm Alliance Manager here in the San Francisco office, and I will be conducting today's webinar. I would like to remind you that throughout the webinar you will be muted, but if you have any question, comment, suggestion, please feel free to include them in the questions panel. You will find in the right-hand side there is a small arrow where you will be able to pull the panel, enter your questions, and I will leave like 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the number of questions, to answer all the questions. So please use this panel whenever you consider appropriate. The agenda for today's webinar will start with the common pitfalls that we have found when establishing integrated ALM environments. And then we will transition to see a specific platform to integrate the different processes. Finally, we will take a look at more specifically, how to integrate Visure requirements with HP ALM 11.5, even though most of the integrations work in a similar way. So either HP ALM 11, 10x, even 12, or even HP QC. So when thinking about an integrated environment, we should ask ourselves whether we are able to answer questions like how do we trigger impact analysis in our requirements tool as soon as my customer submits a change request, or which customer requirements are designed, which ones are coded already, and which ones are already tested. What is the cost of feature development? Is my development partner in Bangalore following our defined best practices processes? So in order to be able to answer all of these questions, which are cross-discipline questions, we will never find one single tool out there that is able to answer all of these questions. We will need to have also cross-tool integrations. So to be able to answer them, we will have to integrate the different tools. So the most common pitfalls that we find in our customers when starting to integrate the different teams together, and the first one and the most common one is the belief that that if a tool has been successful for a team, it will be successful for other teams and for other disciplines. So, for instance, if we have a test management tool that has a specific support to requirements management, thinking that extending the use of that test management tool for requirements management will also be successful. We have to, in most cases, we have to think that tools have been specifically designed not only to address features, but to address the needs of the specific teams. What we find is that these tools that have some capabilities for other disciplines do require some customization, might require some scripting, might require some additional scripts, might require some workarounds that at the end of the day require to be maintained over time. Maintaining all of these plugins, custom scripts, all of that can become even more costly than implementing a requirements management tool straight from the beginning. So in the example of today, the HP ALM, it does have support to requirements management, but is it specifically designed to support complex requirements management processes. It has great support to support integrations, great to support to requirements, to be able to exchange with other tools. But is it enough for your company in the long term? Another very, very common pitfall is the fact that we might have tools that are being successful within specific areas, departments, teams, but they are not integrated. Or when creating integration, we have a weak traceability between the tools. This weak traceability, understood as copying and pasting manually the requirements IDs or the element IDs from one tool to the other. Even though this sounds terrible, it is pretty common, and actually we have all seen that in tools like Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word, mainly because they are not supporting in real integration. So just taking the IDs and pasting them into text fields simply doesn't work. First of all, because it's time-consuming, it's error-prone, and it can absolutely burn a team. What we have to do is find not only the tools, but also the interfaces that will be able to implement and deploy that tool within our ecosystem and our integrated environment. And the third most important pitfall is believing that because two different tools are provided by the same tool vendor, they are absolutely and tightly and seamlessly integrated. In most cases, tools in large vendors come from acquisitions and third-party, and mainly they are third-party products. Even though efforts are spent on integrating these tools, what we have to do is make sure that the integration supports our use case. The fact that two tools are integrated doesn't mean that it covers our integration needs. Understood as who is performing the integration. Is it the requirements tool or is it the test tool? Are we bringing requirements or are we pushing requirements? Who's the product in charge of establishing and maintaining the traceability? Is it the requirements tool? Is it the test tool? Or is the requirements tool responsible for the traceability between requirements and the test tool between requirements and test cases? So we have to be clear on our use case. What do we want to do? And make sure that these integrations cover it. We spend a lot of time evaluating products, but we should be spending at least as much time evaluating also the interfaces between these products, because it can be the weak spot in our environment. So Visure provides an integration environment that allows integrating the requirements management portion into your own ecosystem, integrating with test management tools, integrating with change management, with backtracking, project management, and many other tools. So this integration platform will allow you to create an open ALM, meaning that you can pick and choose the tools that have been successful in your environment and integrate in there the requirements portion. So that will allow you to keep your best practices, your process, your tools, without having to rearrange or reestablish any of them. What we want to do is adapt to your existing ecosystem. On top of that, the flexibility of our integration platform allows us to not only integrate with the tools, but also we found that some companies already have requirements management systems in place. So, for instance, you might have, I don't know, Word as the most common requirements management tool, but you might also have something like IBM DOS or any other product. Well, our platform allows you to integrate with those tools in case you don't want to replace them all at once, but have some teams working in DOS and some teams working in Visure, and they have to integrate all of them, exchange information. If a supplier is using DOS, we can send them and we can receive requirements, not specifically integrated, but exchange information. But also, in the third aspect, we are able to migrate from those environments, bringing all of the data, including baselines, history, user management, and information included in those databases. So how do we establish that traceability? How do we configure it? This is just an example of the integration user interface. This is just a screenshot, and our integration is based on mappings. So the mappings will allow us to indicate the systems we want to integrate. For instance, we see the source system, Visure, and the destination system. So we already see that we can select the source and the destination. So we are able to select, in this case of HP ALM, we can select Visure to HP QC, but we would also be able to select from HP QC to Visure. So we can select the direction, one way or the other. That's the first important aspect. The second important aspect is the fact that we will be able to select the items we want to take from one tool to the other. So we will be able to integrate requirements, obviously, test cases, and defects. So any of these items can go from Visure to HP ALM or from HP ALM to Visure. Okay. If we go down a little bit, we will see the field mapping. This field mapping is absolutely key because we'll actually indicate what kind of information we're taking from one tool to the other. So we might say that the Visure name as the subject of the requirement is traveling and is being mapped from Visure to the HP ALM name, which makes all the sense, as well as the description or even the status. So what we're indicating here is that the approval and review status of a requirement is being pulled from or is being taken from Visure into HP ALM. The interesting thing about this is that we can configure as many mappings as we want at the same time. So we could establish this mapping, and we could establish the mapping the other way around at the same time, from HP ALM to Visure, indicating the fields we want to integrate. So perhaps we're taking requirements along with the status from Visure to HP ALM. We can see the status in HP ALM, but we're rather interested to take from HP to Visure the direct cover status. So what is the testing status of that requirement? We will definitely not review or approve a requirement in HP ALM, but we will test it. So that result can go back into Visure. So the same requirement might be synchronized bidirectionally between Visure and HP QC, making sure that we are synchronizing the correct fields in each one of them. Apart from that, we also have another key aspect, which is the relationships. So in here, we can select and we can indicate which relationships will travel from one tool to the other. So we would be able to indicate that if we are taking several types of requirements to HP ALM, we are taking the traceability too. If we are taking test cases from HP ALM to Visure, we might want to take the traceability to requirements too. So this is where we will indicate it. So as you can see, the flexibility is absolute. So we can support as many scenarios and use cases as you can imagine. This is the specific example of HP ALM, but this mapping and the way of integration is very similar with the rest of the tools, and we support the major vendors out there in the market, including Microsoft, HP, IBM Rational, Atlassian, Sparks Systems, Cpoint version. If you have any question regarding any specific tool or vendor that you would like to receive further information, just please don't hesitate to contact us, and we can set up either a demo or send you some further information. So please don't hesitate to ask. So this integration basically fosters the Visure capabilities and what makes it unique in your life cycle. So what is it that makes Visure unique compared to the rest of the applications out there in the market? I'll go very quickly through these slides to be able to go into the demo of the integration. So there are three main aspects that make it absolutely unique. The first one is the fact that it's a process-oriented tool. We try to facilitate a process discipline, indicating the users what is what is the process, what they are meant to be doing, and enforce it. So we have what we call the block diagrams. The block diagrams are representation of the element types and the traceability. So by a click of a button, people will not be able to do anything else than what we have defined in these diagrams. These diagrams will also indicate the way in which we integrate with other tools. So this is a phenomenal way to make sure everybody's in the same page, and we have a consistent data in the database. The second aspect is the fact that that we are a collaboration platform. So collaboration meaning not only a distributed access to the information, of course, but also being distributed doesn't mean that you are collaborating. So email, for instance, is one of the most distributed capabilities out there, but it's one of the least collaborative tools sometimes. So what we try to do is define roles, and depending on the role, you can configure the user interface of the application, the activating features. You can configure the information, the access rights, and also the way in which users will visualize information. So some users might want to see a document or a specification, and other users might want to see a prioritization of requirements or a change impact analysis view. The third aspect is the quality. So what we try to do is escape from a management perspective exclusively and become an engineering product. This is absolutely key for a requirements tool. We cannot allow handling requirement information and making the final result as good or as bad as the input in a crap in, crap out kind of situation. So what we try to do is enhance the quality of those requirements by three main aspects. The first one is the traceability through powerful change impact analysis features. The second one through semantic analysis. We analyze requirements and try to find out low quality aspects in them. Like ambiguity, inconsistency, wrong verb tensors, volatility, and so forth. And the third aspect, the reusability, reusing those high-quality requirements throughout all of the projects in the company. Good. So just very quickly, we will check some of the benefits of an integrated ALM, and we'll transition to the demo. So a full integrated ALM will help us visualize all the information straight from all the tools. So if we have a passed test or a failed test, we will be able to see that straight from the requirements tool. We don't need to navigate between applications to find the information we want to, that is relevant for us. The second aspect is that having an integrated environment will allow us to comply with standards, making sure that all the requirements have been tested, that the risks have been mitigated, and so forth. Which, at the end of the day, having data helps us make better decisions for the business. It's as simple as that. In another aspect that you will find a huge improvement is the collaboration, helping teams to work with the data and the tools they are meant to be using. So HP ALM, it's a pretty technical tool, which is phenomenal for the QA teams, whereas for the business team, it might be a little bit too complex. For the business team, we need a specialized requirements management tool that can provide requirements in a more Word or document-oriented tool that they can feel comfortable, and that has been designed specifically for those roles. And finally, we need to have the tools work for us. We need to automate the tasks as much as possible and have them automate as much as possible. Perfect. So let's go straight to the demo and see how the tool works. So for this purpose, I've prepared a environment here. As you can see, the Morphe is still working, so what I'll do is that I'll restart our virtual machine. I would like to remember that you can post all your questions in the questions panel at the right-hand side. So please feel free to put any comments in there. I will leave some time at the end of the webinar to go through each one of them. Perfect. So this is our environment, and this is Visure requirements. I'll open the product. I'll go through a couple of basic concepts, and then we will go straight to the integration. Okay, so this is Visure requirements, and this is one of the specification views. So this is pretty straightforward, like a Word document where we have our requirements. For each one of the requirements, we have a unique identifier, which we call the code. We have a name as a summary and a description. Description being RTF. We can include OLE objects or any kind of data we want. Apart from that, we have custom attributes that can go from things like priority, approval, and review status, being that attribute a workflow, absolute customizable workflow, and attributes that might come from HP ALM, like the direct cover status. Visure is one of the fundamental pieces is the block diagrams, as we spoke during the presentation. So this is an example of a block diagram. So each one of these boxes is a block and represents an element type. So we can create as many blocks as we want. This is absolutely customizable. And we can simply create new ones by hardware requirements, by creating new boxes in here. So what I've done right now is not only creating a box in this diagram, but I've created a new element type. I can do that because of my administration access rights in this project. And now I've created this new specification here. Apart from the element types that we have, we also have the relationships between them. So this line in here between business rules and system requirements indicate that there must be, and that we allow association between these two elements. The interesting thing is that we can only establish the relationships that we have defined in this block diagram. So at this point in time, hardware requirements would be completely isolated from the rest of the elements. So we would have to do something like this. Actually, not that for sure, but something like system requirements to hardware requirements satisfied by. Good. So now we will be able to trace system requirements to hardware requirements. Until that point in time, it would be literally impossible to establish those relationships. So let's go back to the requirements view. And let's take a look at the specification. If the network connection allows us to do so. We have been experiencing some technical difficulties throughout the day, so hopefully we won't experience much in here. So through this drop-down menu here, we can navigate through the specifications we have just seen in the block diagram, like business rules, defects, hardware, software design. And here we see the new specification I just created, the hardware requirements. Of course, it's absolutely empty, but we already have it listed in there. And every element that we create in there can potentially be traced to system requirements. Let's go to the software requirements, and let's create a new software requirement. So we can simply right-click and select to create a new element from a template. These are the different templates that we can create, are absolutely custom templates, and let's create a new software requirement. So let's create, let's call this new software requirement. As you can see, my imagination, it's not the best at this point in time, but what we see here is that the description is it's a proposed default description. So that means that depending on the element type, we can propose the users a default description. They can, for instance, replace it and start creating their own. So just this, something as simple as that, we've seen that it's extremely useful to increase the quality, of the requirement description. Okay, so we're clicking OK, and let's create the element. Again, if the network allows us to continue with the demo. So I mentioned we are experiencing some difficulties with the network here. So one of the questions we have in the panel is about the differences between Visure and DOORS. So the purpose of today's meeting is definitely not the comparison between DOORS and Visure, and definitely not a Visure demo. Hopefully, if the network comes back, we will be able to take a look at the integration itself. So in terms of comparison with DOORS, and let me. Okay, sorry for that. Let me check in the element. So I have created a new software requirement here, but before that, I'll quickly go through some of the differences with DOORS, even though I'll try to address them afterwards. So three main differences. The first one is the fact that and even though it's not the purpose of this webinar, I would like to highlight a couple of them. We make use of standards. We are based upon Oracle or SQL Server as a database. Our interfaces are COM APIs for absolutely everything. And also, we are collaborative in the sense that requirements are not stuck into a module. We can do cross module filtering and views. In here, we have been navigating through modules just because I want to keep it very simple, but we can create a view where we can see all the security requirements from all the specs. We would be able to go to this view, attributes, the validation method, for instance. In our case, none of the requirements have a validation method, but we would be able to see all of the requirements in our database that have testing as a validation method. If we select perhaps a better example like the priority. Okay, so here we see all the requirements, a system, user, software, tests that have high priority. We could even classify them out afterwards based on any other attribute. So for the analysis of requirements, this is far more interesting than DOORS. And in terms of change impact analysis, we can also pull all the requirements from all the specs and have a traceability view like this one where we can see all the traceability from the user to the system to the software to the tests to the source code of each one of them. And we would be able to modify the elements from here without any DXL or any any customization. This is a user interface configuration. And finally, the reusability capabilities are something which are extremely appreciated by our customers. So after this interim, let's go to HP ALM, and hopefully, if the virtual machine is up and running appropriately, what we will see is that in the requirements view, we will have this new software requirement that we have created automatically populated into HP ALM. Okay. Well, as you can see, the speed of today's network is not that great. But what we wanted to see is that this new software requirement that we created inside Visure has been automatically created in HP ALM automatically. So let me create a new software design requirement in HP ALM. Description. Submit. So what I've done is I created a requirement inside Visure, and this requirement has been automatically created in HP ALM. I would be able to update this requirement from HP ALM and send the update automatically to Visure, or I can also configure the integration to take requirements from HP ALM, new requirements, and push them back into Visure. So we can configure the integration the way we want. So bidirectionally, taking elements from one way to the other. So another use case that we support is the possibility to only be able to update requirements from HP ALM. So it might make sense that only reviewed requirements are taken to HP ALM. We update them with a direct cover status, and that information is taken back into Visure. In this case, I'm showing also the possibility to create this type of elements. Perfect. And what I'll also do is that I'll create a new test case here. So a new test case. As you can see, my imagination has not improved since the last time. So the description of this test created in HP ALM. So, okay. But in this case, we not only want to take the test case, but we might want to take the test case along with the traceability to this requirement also. Perfect. Good. So let's go back to Visure. Let me go back to the block diagram to explain what we have done. So what we've done is that we've created a software requirement inside Visure, and this is taken to HP ALM. So this block in here has been configured to synchronize with HP ALM. However, this box in here, this block, has been configured to synchronize from HP ALM, as well as this one here. So test cases are synchronized and taken from HP ALM, along with this traceability here too. And finally, we can also do the same with the defect. So we can take and synchronize requirements, test cases, and defects in the way we want. So let's go to the software design, and let's see if the requirement has been created or not. So software design, let's refresh the view. Let's scroll down. Perfect. And what we see is this new software design requirement in HP ALM. Perfect. What we see is also no run. So the direct cover status has also been brought because we have configured it that way. And we can also see this column validated by is the traceability to test cases. So this new element that has been created in here is already traced to this element. So let's go to the test cases view, and this is what we see: the new test case, description of this test created in HP ALM, along with the traceability to this requirement. So as you can see, the effort the users have to make to integrate the tools is basically zero, because it's an automated synchronization. So we just need to create the element, wait for a couple of seconds, and the element will be automatically created in the other product exactly in the place we want, in the way we want. If we go to the other product, we can just modify that element or create new ones, trace them, and they will be also automatically created in the other tool. Perfect. So let's go back to Visure, to the presentation. So just as a summary of what we have seen, I've tried to demonstrate the integration. As I mentioned before, this has definitely not been intended to be a Visure demonstration at all. Visure provides full-blown requirements management capabilities that we have not seen, from change impact analysis, reusability, risk management, support to FMEA, variant management, use cases, many other capabilities that we have not seen. But rather than that, trying to show the interface to the tools, to be able to synchronize information seamlessly, to be able to also perform cross-product activities like reporting, like change impact analysis, in a way in which is effective for the users, which is not doing anything. They just create elements and they are populated to the rest of the tools. And also having taken into account that this integration works almost identical with other tools. So we would be able to create a requirement in Visure, and that would be taken automatically to Jira. They would be taken automatically to HP ALM or to ClearCase, ClearQuest, or any other tools. And the user has to do nothing. That is completely automated. So I'm leaving approximately 10 minutes for Q&A. So please feel free to post your comments in the questions panel at the right-hand side. Okay, so let's take a look at the questions. Okay, so we have several questions. The question about doors. So as I mentioned previously, we do have a doors comparison. We would be more than glad to share with you the differences between the products. I will highlight one of the aspects in a couple of seconds, which I think it's absolutely key, which is the semantic analysis of requirements. So one second, and I'll be able to show you what we call the quality analyzer. So I will select a specific project like surgical imaging. And what I will do is that I will semantically pass a specific type of element like the user requirements. Perfect. So here we've got all the user requirements, and here we've got an overall quality. So high, medium, low. If you ever see a high quality requirement, be suspicious. So in here we've got low requirements, and we might want to check why this requirement is low. So we can double click on it and see the details on why. Perfect. So this is the requirements description. It is normally necessary to provide at least one measure for each of effectiveness, efficiency, and whatever. The interesting thing about this is that we provide some suggestions to the user that wrote this requirement to improve the quality. So we've got this summary saying long requirements measured in the number of words must be avoided. These metrics can be configured, of course, but we predefine the ranges of all the metrics. Incomplete sentences must be avoided, like example. Ambiguous sentences must be avoided, and we give the list of ambiguous sentences. Conditional sentences, the number of words, verbs. So we can also go to the detail of this analysis, which we will find in here. So we've got approximately 35 metrics going from the acronyms that have not been defined in the glossary of terms. Ambiguous sentences, we've got 3 ambiguous terms. Boilerplate matching, conditional mode, if we're using shoulds instead of shalls, the number of connectors, so we're using 7 connectors, ands and ors. So probably we might need to divide this requirement into several. The number of relationships, 4, is just about perfect. If we are using design sentences in a user requirement or a customer requirement, because the customer is asking for a XML file, well, the customer should be asking to solve a need. The main concepts, as you can see, many different metrics here. So we can double-click and see, well, we've got 3 ambiguous sentences, so indicate which ones. So if we double-click, we can highlight them directly into the description, so necessary at least based on. But also we have all the metrics in here, so we can navigate. So if that's a dangerous statement there. Speculative sentences, it is normally. What is normally? Living here in San Francisco has changed completely the meaning of normal. So what is normal? So we have to define a little bit more what that is. So this semantic analysis is very much appreciated by customers. And finally, not only can we extract the quality of single requirements, but also we can extract the quality of the specification. So a spec can contain extremely high quality requirements, but still be absolutely inconsistent. So this capability here of overlapping analyzes 2 different specs or the same spec, and through semantic check, we can indicate the number of requirements over a specific percentage of similarity. So here through this slide bar, I can indicate to show all those elements that are beyond 80% of similarity. So here we've got, for instance, the electrical requirement, which is 89% similar to a mechanical requirement. So if I double click here, I see the descriptions, and we can see that they both are talking about a very similar thing. Perhaps they are overlapping, perhaps they are just related, but also they might be contradicting themselves, or it might not be feasible to develop both at the same time. So contradicting requirements are typically beyond 80% similarity, 80-85%, because there's just a not in one of the requirements. So this is definitely a huge advantage compared to DOORS, apart from the impact analysis things we mentioned. We have another question. Are the interfaces, well, regarding DOORS, I would like to answer some of the other questions. We will get back to you with DOORS comparisons. So any of you who would like to receive it, please get in contact with us. I already have one request to send this comparison, so you will receive it in soon. The interfaces for the integration, are they custom defined or based on any industry standard like OSLC? So they are REST services. They are not specifically OSLC, even though for the JAS platform we use some of them, but for the rest of the applications they are not specifically OSLC. We are working on OSLC interfaces through a specific R&D project in which Visure is participating. What we've seen is that the OSLC interface, and this is well known in the R&D projects, is lacking some of the requirements capabilities. Let's say that the interface it's really powerful and really interesting, but the requirements piece needs to evolve yet a little bit more. So one of the challenges we're facing are specifically those that have to do with reusability, product variants, and so forth. So more questions. Let's somehow managed to lose the questions panel. Okay. The overlap of requirements demonstration you showed did not look similar. Could you bring it up again and show how the requirements are similar? Yep. So let me just open any. Okay, so overlapping. So this is the slide bar where we can adjust the level of similarity. So let's select the two similar requirements like this one. So the calibration screen shall display a green primary section of a slider that lets the user choose the level of saturation. The calibration screen shall display a red primary section with a slider that lets the user choose the level of hue between 0 and 120. So these elements are pretty close. They are not identical, but they are pretty close. So so actually we could even say, wow, we've got 110 here and 120 here. Are the values correct, or is there any misconception here? So that's pretty much the overlapping of the requirements. So even though the words match in here, we can build an ontology that indicates or might indicate that things like user, it's the exact same thing as customer, as stakeholder. So if a requirement talks about a user entering information, it will identify it identically as the customer fill-ins the form, because they are synonyms, so it will identify them as the same thing. And we have one last question regarding the integration. So does the integration allow a bidirectional synchronization of the attributes? So basically, this is what we saw during the demo. Basically, we are able to take requirements from one tool to the other and take them back, and we are able to decide which attributes travel from one tool to the other. So we can say, okay, the status, the approval status, whether it is accepted or rejected, we can use it to filter the elements that go to HP ALM, so that only the accepted ones or the reviewed ones are taken to HP ALM. The priority we wanted to be defined inside Visure. So priority goes from Visure to HP ALM. The tested status, whether it has been tested or not, it makes sense that it goes from HP ALM to Visure. So within the same requirement, different fields are traveling in both directions. And perhaps we might have an attribute like the comments that can be synchronized both ways. So if a user modifies the requirement, that'll be pushed to HP ALM, and likewise the other way around. Of course, this kind of attributes, we got to be extremely careful because we might have two users editing the same attribute at the same time in both tools. So in that case, the latest one will prevail on top of the other one. So it's already it's almost 10. We have some other questions, but I don't think we can address them right now. I would like you to thank you for your time. I hope the webinar was interesting enough, and if you have any other question, we will try to address those that have been left out offline. Please don't hesitate to contact us. We will be glad to set up a demo with your own data, with your own environment, specifically for you. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and hope to speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.